An Israeli airstrike has killed an elite Hezbollah commander in southern Lebanon. Today is Tuesday, January 9th, 2024, and this is the Dunkley Report. An Israeli airstrike has killed an elite Hezbollah commander in southern Lebanon. It's the latest in an escalating exchange of strikes along the border that have raised fears of another Mideast war, even as the fighting in Gaza exacts a mounting toll on civilians. A Lebanese security official said Monday's strike on an SUV killed a commander in a secretive Hezbollah force that operates along the border. Hezbollah identified the slain fighter as Wissam al-Tawil without providing further details. He is the most senior Hezbollah militant to have been killed since Hamas's October 7th attack into southern Israel triggered all-out war in Gaza and lower-intensity fighting between Israel and Hezbollah, which has escalated since an Israeli strike killed a senior Hamas leader in Beirut last week. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken says 4 key Arab nations and Turkey have agreed to begin planning for the reconstruction and governance of Gaza once Israel's war against Hamas ends. Blinken spoke Monday after meeting with the Saudi Crown Prince. He is on an urgent Mideast mission that also took him to Jordan, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and Turkey. Arab countries had previously resisted U.S. calls for post-war planning to begin, insisting that there must first be a ceasefire and a sharp reduction in civilian suffering caused by Israel's military offensive. Blinken said he would bring the Arab commitments to Israel's prime minister and the Palestinian leader before presenting them to the Egyptian president. The elite Hezbollah commander, who was killed in an Israeli airstrike in southern Lebanon, fought for the militant group for decades and took part in some of its biggest battles. Wissam al-Tawil was a commander in Hezbollah's secretive Radwan force, which is deployed along the border with Israel. He was killed Monday when a strike hit his SUV in his hometown. The strike was about 10 kilometers, 6 miles, from the border, where the two sides have exchanged fire for 3 months. Israeli officials have been demanding for weeks that the Radwan force withdraw from the border area to allow Israelis displaced by the fighting to return to their homes. Pope Francis is calling for a universal ban on what he calls the despicable practice of surrogate motherhood. He included what he called the commercialization of pregnancy in an annual speech to ambassadors accredited to the Holy See. The speech listed the threats to global peace and human dignity, including Russia's war in Ukraine, the Israel-Gaza war, migration and climate crises, and the immoral production of nuclear and conventional weapons. But he also listed smaller-scale issues that he said were threats to human dignity, including surrogacy. Officials say Russia has launched its latest barrage of hypersonic and cruise missiles against Ukrainian targets, striking near the front lines of fighting in the east, as well as in central and western parts of the country. They said Monday that at least 4 civilians were reported killed and at least 30 injured. Western officials and analysts had previously warned that Russia was stockpiling its cruise missiles in preparation for a strategy of winter bombardment, as bad weather keeps the 1,500-kilometer, 930-mile, front line largely static after 22 months of war. Unlike last winter, when the Kremlin's forces targeted Ukraine's power grid, Russia is now aiming at Kyiv's defense industry, they say. But the barrages have repeatedly hit civilian areas. Opposition politicians in Italy are demanding that police investigate a rally in Rome where hundreds of participants raised an arm in the banned fascist salute. Use of fascist symbolism, including the salute which harks back to the dictatorship of Benito Mussolini, is banned in post-war Italy. On Sunday evening, a crowd of what appeared to be hundreds of people turned out in a Rome working-class neighborhood to pay tribute to two members of a neo-fascist youth group who were slain in an attack later claimed by far-left militants. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has swept to power for a fourth consecutive term in Bangladesh. Sunday's election was boycotted by opposition parties and marked by protests and international scrutiny. Hasina's Awami League party won 222 seats out of 299, cementing a majority in parliament and extending her 15-year-long rule. She is one of Bangladesh's most defining and divisive leaders. But her victory came amid low voter turnout in a severely contentious climate that saw opposition members jailed ahead of the polls. Analysts say the stifling of dissent puts Bangladesh's democracy in a fragile position and may test some of its diplomatic ties. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un turns 40 on Monday, with no announced public celebrations at home. He entered the new year with artillery barrages into the sea and vows to expand his nuclear arsenal. Since taking power in late 2011, Kim, the third generation of his family to rule North Korea, is believed to have established an absolute leadership similar to his predecessors. But his birthday has yet to be officially celebrated, unlike his late father and grandfather. Their birthdays are two of the North's biggest holidays. Some observers speculate Kim may think he's still relatively too young or needs bigger achievements to hold lavish birthday festivities. Others say he wants to avoid drawing attention to his late Japan-born mother. Judges in England and Wales have been given approval to use artificial intelligence to help writing legal opinions. The judiciary issued its first guidance last month on the use of AI. The step puts the courts at the forefront of legal systems, grappling with how to regulate AI. The guidance is full of cautions about the limitations and risks of using the technology, and it says, judges shouldn't use AI for research or legal analysis. Judges don't have to disclose they've used the technology. One law lecturer questioned that and asked why the guidance doesn't include an accountability mechanism. Norwegian mass killer Anders Breivik has launched his second attempt at suing the state by accusing the Justice Department of breaching his human rights. Breivik murdered 77 people in a far-right terror attack in 2011. He claims that prison isolation since he was jailed in 2012 amounts to inhumane punishment under the European Convention on Human Rights. He failed in a similar attempt. In 2016 and 2017, when his appeal was ultimately rejected by the European Court of Justice. But his lawyer says the additional years in solitary confinement and the faltering mental health of his client means he should have more contact with other inmates. Breivik launched his second attempt to sue the state on Monday. Today's news was reported by the Associated Press. This has been the World News for Tuesday, January 9th, 2024. thanks again for joining us at The Dunkley Report.